Hi, thank you for joining us. I'm Victor Lopez with NewsWest 9, and with me today we have Dr. Scott Muri, Superintendent for ECISD, and we also have Sarah Moore. You are the chair for the Odessans for a Brighter Future, but you are also a member of the Bond Committee, which is why we're here today, because ECISD, as you know, has a bond proposal coming up on the November ballot, and we want you to be as informed as possible about that bond proposal before you go to the polls. So let's go ahead and jump in feet first. Dr. Muri, we'll start with you. Tell us about the proposal as a whole and then break it down. What are the key points about this particular proposal that you finally decided on?
So good morning, and first thank you for having us here today. So the bond committee made a recommendation to our trustees. The trustees called for an election in the month of August, and we have three different propositions, A, B, and C. Proposition A is the largest of the three, contains the majority of bond items: a new middle school in the western part of Ector County, a new career and technical education facility, a new transition learning center for our special ed population, investments in the fine and performing arts, the purchase of new musical instruments for students, investments in technology, primarily in the area of safety, replacing our cameras, our digital cameras across each of the schools that we have. And then a lot of money towards maintenance and repair. As our buildings age, the maintenance needs become significant, and so there are quite a bit of investment there. Proposition B is the Ratliff Stadium proposition. That includes investments in the Ratliff Stadium facility itself and the complex around it. Concrete overlay, ensuring that the concrete itself that is starting to crack maintains its health. Adding some lights. The parking lot has no lights, and so adding lights to that area. And then Proposition C is the smallest of the three, and that focuses primarily on Odessa High School and Permian High School. It would add a new indoor practice facility at Odessa High School, and then replace the turf on the practice facility at Permian High School. So those are the three propositions, totaling about $437 million.
Okay, now a good thing to bring up right now, when we're talking about these three propositions, A, B, and C, how is this bond set up? Do they all three have to pass for the bond to pass, or can they pass individually?
They can pass individually, and so each of the propositions really gives the voters an opportunity to make a decision on Proposition A, yes or no, Proposition B, and then Proposition C. So one could pass, or all three could pass.
Okay, and that's very important to know. So you're not tied down to just voting for the whole package as a whole. You pick the one or ones that suit your liking.
I think it's interesting, the reason for the division. The law in Texas requires that some of these items be separate and apart from the regular bonding. And we have a primary bond in Proposition A, but the athletic facilities as well as buildings that are not directly tied to academics have to be in a separate proposition, and hence the three.
Okay. Now, Sarah, you actually played a very big part in this proposal. As we said before, you are on the bond committee who made this final proposal to the board itself. So first, tell us what you do that made you qualified to be on the committee, and what were some of the key things that you and the committee members looked at when you were putting these ideas together?
Sure. Well, what qualifies me is that I'm a taxpayer here in Odessa. And I don't have children in school, but I have a family member who works for the school district. And so I'm interested, of course, in having the best environment for her to work in, and also for the students that she's involved with. And so I think any resident of Odessa and Ector County has a vital, or should have a vital interest in this proposal. And even though we can pass, as you said, Proposition A, B, or C, or we can pass them all together, it's really, this bond has been designed to reach into all areas of Ector County. The bond committee was made up of community members like me, taxpayers, teachers, students. We had students in this committee. There were some 130 people, I think, that met for a number of months to come up with the proposal for the school district. We used a lot of the information from the last school bond effort Obviously we wanted to expand and reach the parts that we maybe had not considered before. So this proposal and this initiative reaches into all of Ector County by putting a middle school outside of Loop 338 on the west side of Odessa. Addresses the needs of many, many, many students who have to travel long distances by either be brought in by a parent or ride buses to get to a campus every day. So that's one great need that we're trying to address. Also in South Odessa, where our industrial population and a lot of business locations are in South Odessa, a new career technology education center would like to be placed there strategically so that our business community can reap benefits from the students that graduate from that. And then there are in the maintenance and repairs, these are heavy maintenance and repairs that are needed, and that reaches every campus in the entire Ector County. So we've tried very hard to make this a community-wide, Ector County-wide effort to better in all areas.
So actually, I was going to address that. You have made this a cross-section of everybody that could be affected in any way
Yes.
by the bond itself.
Yes, we have. We've tried to incorporate residents who live in each area of town, north, south, east, and west. We've talked about people who have students, people who don't have students, and a lot of people will immediately respond and say, well, I don't have students in school. And that's true, or may be true, but this bond really addresses the needs of our community. We're producing our leaders, our workforce, and people that will take care of us as we age. We're producing those people through these education initiatives, and so this bond is going to go to support that.
Now, both of you in your initial statements have mentioned much needed repairs and, dare I say, upgrades. Dr. Muri, if you can address what people think about the age of the buildings. What are we talking about exactly in terms to the buildings at ECISD?
So we have 45 schools in ECISD, and the average age for our schools is 61 years of age, or I should say half of our schools are 61 years of age or older, with our oldest building being 85 years old. And so our students are attending those schools today. And as our buildings age, much like the homes that many of us live in, they require more repair. We have a maintenance team, and I'll use air conditioners as the example, that replaces filter and tweaks and makes adjustments. But at some point, those air conditioners fail. Their life comes to an end, and they have to be completely replaced. And the air conditioning system for an elementary school is $500,000. For a high school, you're talking $2.5 million to replace the air conditioning systems. And so as our buildings age, that type of operation must take place. Same thing with plumbing. It's not just adjusting and tweaking, it is digging up the floor and replacing plumbing that was built in the 40s and 50s, or electrical. Our students use a lot of tools today, and so it is replacing the electrical systems in our schools as our building age. So again, a major investment in significant maintenance upgrades for our campuses.
Yeah, a good example of that would be that school districts across the country are building brand new schools. We've had several just here in West Texas that in years past have passed their bonds and have brand new buildings, state-of-the-art equipment. So ECISD needs that because, as you said, what we have now doesn't meet the capacity or the need of the students.
Well, teaching and learning looks different today from the way it looked, 50 years ago, 75 years ago, et cetera. And our students, because the teachers are utilizing different tools and creating different experiences, our facilities need to empower our teachers and students in the area of learning, and some of our buildings really struggle to do that today, and so that handicaps our students. And so certainly this investment would have an impact upon the type of facilities that students and teachers have access to.
Okay, so Sarah, given all of that information, how many options, proposals, or ideas did the committee toss around before ultimately deciding on these three propositions?
Well, it was a very interesting process, and we considered Each department head in the school system came and made a presentation of what their needs were, and we also had a presentation from the architect who will be doing a lot of these and overseeing a lot of these repairs and maintenance. And so we considered everything, and if you consider everything that the school system needs, we're looking at over $1 billion worth of need. So, so our first consideration too was what can we do and have the least impact on our taxpayers. And so this particular bond, this is going to be presented at no tax rate increase for the voter, for the taxpayer. So we're able to do that, and this is just the first step in our direction toward the future. We need a series of bonds to address our needs as our schools, buildings, and facilities continue to age. This can't be just a one and done thing. Repairs and maintenance and changes come every day, the need for that. And so we have to be prepared as a community to address that need in order to keep our school system at the premier level it should be.
Now, you brought up a very interesting and important point when you talked about the tax rate. Several bonds, not just for ECISD, but other districts in the past have failed because the taxpayer says that they're asking too much. They're going to raise my tax rate. I don't want to pay all that. You said zero tax rate increase.
Not zero taxes,
Or
but
zero
zero tax rate
tax rate,
increase.
yes.
So whatever the school district tax rate was for your taxes last year, it should remain the same this year, even though we're going to float this bond hopefully to a positive outcome in November. That's huge. The school district has very astutely raised our ability to do that by sound financial practice. We have an A+ bond rating. Dr. Muri can probably speak to this more clearly than me, but we're able to offer that to the community without tax rate increase. So it's a prime time to take advantage. We have a threshold of money that we can handle in this bond election to put forth to the future at no tax rate increase, and I hope we all agree that that is a great way to start. In the future, we may have to have a tax increase, but that remains to be seen.
For now, that's
For
not
now,
the
it
case.
is not, yes.
Okay, Dr. Muri, go ahead and address that, what Sarah just brought up.
Sure. So we've really, thanks to the Board of Trustees and some wise investments that they've made, wise decisions over the last 3 years, the district is in a good financial situation. We have an A+, a perfect score on the Texas Education Agency rating for school finance reform. Our bond rating has increased. We've seen our country's bond rating actually decrease over the last year. Ours actually has increased, and so that allows the school system to have a better market opportunity when it comes to buying and selling bonds. But that has given us the capacity to create this bond without raising the tax rate for taxpayers in ECISD. So certainly that's good news, but it didn't happen easily. It happened because of those really smart investments over the last 3 years.
Okay, so I'm going to have both of you answer this next question because I want your each individual perspective. If you could narrow it down to 2, maybe 3 key points about this bond proposal as to why voters should approve this in November. And Sarah, let's start with you on that.
Okay, well, my first thought is that whether you have children in the schools or not, this bond will better our community for each one of us. If you're sick and in the hospital, the lab person, a phlebotomist might come to take care of you in your hospital room. That person can be trained at the Career Technology Education Center. If you go into a restaurant locally and sit down to eat, the chef may have been trained at the Career Technology Education Center. If your air conditioning is broken, a repair person comes to repair that, and they may have been trained in Ector County. And certainly a number of our students will go off to college, earn degrees, some professional degrees, and hopefully they will return to our community as well. And it builds our community, it builds our business. It's good for our students, our families, and our special needs students as well. This bond also contains a new facility for the Transition Learning Center, which houses our 18+ program. It's an excellent program. We have great programs. We need the facilities to accommodate them.
Okay, Dr. Muri?
Yeah, I can just give information, and so let the
Right.
voter decide what's appropriate for them. But I think some important information for people to know. One would be that the bond referendum affects every single child in ECISD. Every single school is touched by this particular bond in one way or another. And many of our programs are touched in one way or another. Our fine arts programs, our athletic programs, our academic program, our special ed program, our JROTC students, our career and technical education programming. We're also a growing school district. In fact, just this week we surpassed our projection. We had projected 33,500 students this year, and we have now surpassed that. And so our growing community, we must take care of the new students. We cannot turn kids away. We have to accept them, and so these facilities certainly allow the system to take on those new kids. The last thing I would say programmatically would be I would focus on the Career and Technical Education Center specifically. Right. We're doing this in partnership with Odessa College, and so the facility itself will house 400 students as their full-time high school every day. We will transport 2,000 students in and out of that building every day to take career and technical education courses. The vast majority of our high school students are involved in CTE programming. At night and on the weekend, the facility will be used by Odessa College for upskilling and reskilling. And so adults, not only in the Ector County community, but really from all over the basin, businesses and others can be educated using that facility at night and on the weekends. And so I think that's important for the voters to know and understand that it is a joint use venture. And as well, the Permian Strategic Partnership has committed a significant amount of money to help us open that facility. And so if the bond passes, the Permian Strategic Partnership has committed some dollars to making sure that that facility meets the needs of our community.
And that is definitely some good information to know that you're not only taking care of the district students, but people beyond the senior grade level age. So again, a big cross section.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
I think that's one of the things in public education. Sometimes we think pre-K through 12, but in this case, when our buildings sit empty at night and on the weekends, in this case, the adults in our community have a chance to use that. Really, thanks to Odessa College and their partnership in this program.
All right. So, okay, obviously, you want this bond to pass. So, twofold question again. What is next? What are the next steps if the bond or all three propositions pass? But also, what are the next steps if it or any part of it does not pass? Where do you go from there?
Yeah, so from the system perspective, if all three propositions pass, we immediately begin work. This is a 5-year bond proposal. We anticipate all of the items in the bond being completed within a 5-year period of time.
Okay.
But it also takes time. There's planning that must occur, where one of the opportunities is to build a new middle school, to build a new career and technical education facility. And so it is working with architects and engineers to design those facilities. It is the purchase of property in which those facilities would be located. So there is a lot of work that must happen in order for buildings to come out of the ground. But it will take us 5 years in order to complete all of the projects in the bond. And if it doesn't pass, the needs do not go away. They actually become more significant. The lack of a bond passage would mean that those maintenance needs that exist within our facilities, we would have to figure out another way budgetarily to make sure that those needs are met, and that would affect kids and teachers in our organization, and we don't want to travel down that road.
Now, Sarah, again, from the bond committee perspective, from a resident perspective.
Well, it's needed for our community, absolutely. And we have not really even touched on all of the areas specifically. We are planning a new transportation center for our newer buses. They're larger, and what they're working in now at the bus barn is very small. We're also focused a lot on the fine arts and athletic type improvements that are needed. And it's, you know, it's already almost a quarter of a century into the new millennium. We're not in the new millennium anymore. It's not new anymore.
Nope.
So we have to change our minds and turn and start to look toward the future to build our community and attract businesses who look at a place to move into very often look at the school system first. And so we want a premier school system. We want quality locations for our students and our staff. And I just think it's the sensible thing to do, given at this point we can do this much without tax rate increase. So it's a great place to start, and we need to continue on into the future working on the bonds to help do that.
All right, so given the announcement that, you know, these proposals are going to be on the November ballot, if you can, what has been the general consensus so far of people for or against? What are people saying on the street?
Well, surprisingly, we have had not many, but negative responses. Most people, once they take the time to learn what all the bond is going to encompass, then they are very favorable about it. So our job as a bond committee is to make presentations, help educate the public, make them aware of exactly what pieces are going into this bond. We can't address everything. We'd need $1 billion, as I mentioned, to address everything at once. But we're addressing the things that are needed immediately. Another concern that some of the public has is how crowded our high schools are. This bond, the building of a new middle school, the Career Technology Education Center will help relieve some of that overcrowding enough until we can get to a second bond 5 years down the road to build another high school, hopefully at that time. So it's a great first step, and it's just a matter of relaying the information to the community and making sure that everyone is aware. So that's our job as a committee. Mm-hmm. We have a group, Odessans for a Bright Future, and we have a website that's up and running that will have all kinds of information. If you want to donate or if you want to volunteer, the website is odessansvoteyes.com, odessansvoteyes.com. And if you go onto that website, there's tons of information about how the bond splits out, mm-hmm. what the propositions are exactly, and there's places for you to help.
All right.
So, yeah.
So, Dr. Muri, can you address from the district perspective, what are staff, teachers saying, what are they saying about this proposal? How do they feel about it?
I think probably the most interesting story after the board voted to approve the bond recommendation, one of our employees came up to me and she made the comment, you know, I was born here, I grew up here, went through mm-hmm. the schools, and now I work in this organization. And she said, you know, this is the first time that I've seen the bond proposal speak to every person in Ector County. And I asked, what do you mean? And she said, there's something in this bond for everyone.
Yeah.
And this was a staff member.
It was a staff member. And so I would encourage, you know, the members of our community to really become informed mm-hmm. About the bond proposal. How do you see yourself reflected in this bond? Because clearly there are things for people of every age. Primarily, this is focused on children. We mm-hmm. serve a pre-K through 12th grade, but when our children, you know, receive that investment, obviously that benefits our entire community. And mm-hmm. so I think it's important for our voters to become informed, our community to become informed. We also, the district, EctorCountyISD.org, our website also contains information about the bond, and so you have two places to go to receive mm-hmm. more information. Being informed as a voter is what I would recommend.
Yes.
All right, so Dr. Muri, Sarah, thank you very much for your time. Again, folks, you have all the information that you need to make an informed decision come November on this very important bond for ECISD. Again, you have two websites that you can go to learn more and just peruse those, get
yes.
the information, take it in, digest it, whatever you need to do, and then go to the polls in November and we'll see how this turns out.
Vote yes.
All right, thank you for joining us. And again, go to those websites, learn everything you can about the bond, and then make an informed decision in November.